Family, it's your man JeckOne back again. This time with a 1965 Chevrolet C-10 pickup. Building this ride was my personal validation to being an official vehicle stylist. In the last vlog, I mentioned I had found this pickup online, but the brick and mortar spot was located way out in Arkansas at a project car dealership, which was a term that was new to me at the time. Also around that time, I was planning on moving from New York City to South Carolina to begin my adult life out there. With me spending at least 2 of my summers down there in my teenage years, I already knew that I was going to need more than one vehicle down there. Because most of my family that lived down there in South Carolina, they all pretty much have more than one working registered vehicle. I was web surfing while I was studying one day, and I happened to come across a LMC truck web store, which keyed me into knowing that I'd be able to do my thing with that 1965 Chevy pickup. Because that LMC truck online store had and still pretty much has every part for Chevrolets, GMCs, Fords, and Dodge trucks, all models dating back from 1947 up until now. And with that info, I was off to Arkansas to see and test drive that 1965 Chevy C-10 pickup. I can't front. From the time I started packing for my trip, I could not stop thinking about American history, specifically the wicked shit that happened to my people and all our ancestors in states like Arkansas, and it had me furious. My heart was on blast and my super sense was on 100 the whole time. Fortunately, I didn't experience any problems, any microaggressions or any racial encounters out there, which was a plus. On top of that, the 1965 Chevy pickup was actually running and driving, which lightened my mood somewhat. I got a cover for the 65 pickup and I got out of Arkansas and back to New York without a scratch. During this time, I was finishing off the 1995 Lexus LS 400 and touching up the 2003 Mitsubishi Spider Eclipse. Pretty much updating the interior in both of them. I still have my pre-production and recording equipment, but I started spending most of my time designing and vehicle styling, so my music production was forced to my back burners. And gradually, I started turning my pre-production space into a workshop. I also started doing my one-of-one clothing pieces again for individual clients, but most of my time was spent on that 1995 Lexus LS 400, wrapping the gear shift console from wood grain to an aluminum tone and changing the jean material in the Mitsubishi Spider into denim, which is a darker tone than jean material if you didn't know. I was also adding a larger speaker box and adding jean material to that. Oh yo, check the project playlist to see the full details of these 2 projects that I did. You could also check the few other joints I did as well, which should be 4 more joints for your viewing pleasure. I almost forgot. I also started mock-up door panels for the Spider as well. I began creating render mock-ups with photos to give me a visual picture of what I wanted the 65 to look like once I was done with it. I did that to all the projects I was working on and taped them to my home office wall. Within a few months left for the delivery of the 65 Chevy C-10 pickup, the 2003 Spider was pretty much done, and I realized that I'm going to need that parking spot for the 65 when it gets here, because I'm not going to be able to park that 65 in the street. And I definitely didn't want to park the Spider in the street for the obvious reasons. I figured I might as well take it down south and leave it, since I was planning on moving down there anyway. And with me getting stopped by police every time I pulled it out of the parking lot, it was decided and I was on my way down there. I didn't have much time to do much of anything when I got down there because I was still working at the hospital and I already took my vacation time for the year. So what I did was took a Friday and that following Monday off, so I had about 3 whole days to get there and back. When I got down there, I was told to leave it at my granddaddy's house in his garage. God rest and bless his soul. I tuned the drop, cleaned the drop, and parked it. Linked up with a few of my cousins down there before I bounced, and I was on a flight on my way back home. Before I knew it, the day came to pick up the 1965 Chevy pickup. Tractor trailers aren't allowed in the inner city, so I had to meet the transport trailer at the gas station on the Deegan, up there next to the exit where you get off to go to either or houses. Waiting for that transporter truck to get to that gas station seemed longer than the whole year that I was sending money to Arkansas to get the damn thing. The transport driver couldn't get it off the truck fast enough for me, but once he got it off, I was out, and about half a mile down the highway, the 6.5 cut off on me. It would not start. I called my brother Rob, and he brought Cliff. Long story short, it needed an alternator. They both went to AutoZone to pick one up. I stayed with the truck. I didn't want it to be missing hours right after I got it. I got the 6.5 back to the block late that night, and I parked it on the street because I didn't get the parking permit for the lot yet. Early the next morning, I was in the Bronx with the 6.5s on Cliff's block. I gave the 6.5 a total walk around, tallying up everything that I had to do with it and pretty much what I was going to start with first. I chose to start with the installation of the front bumper, thinking it might be an issue with the cops, and I didn't want any problems with them. Cliff cleaned up the alternator connection that morning when he got there, so I would have no more issues with the 6.5 shutting off on me. Right before I started to install the new front bumper, I remembered that I had to install the seatbelts first, because in 1965, seatbelts weren't mandatory, but now you'll get an ass of tickets for not having any. So I installed the belts first, and right after I started on the new bumper installation. While putting in the bracket brace for the front bumper, I decided to detail the front grille as well. I noticed the headlights were encased in a bezel that was tatted, so I moved to detail those. I updated my workspace again to give me a longer workstation to get things done. I started detailing the headlight bezels there. I finished detailing the grille, which gave the 6.5 pickup a modern look and feel. I also finished installing the bumper bracket brace, but I put that on after I put the grille back on. While putting the headlights back in, I dropped one of the headlights and it shattered into a few pieces, which didn't initially bother me, because the night before I ordered 2 new headlights because the ones the pickup had were both mixed matched and they were super cloudy. The 6.5 was starting to look even better with just those few simple updates. My next move was to black out the rims, which I figured would give the pickup even more definition and make it look even harder than it already was. Later on that day, I stopped at a system shop on Webster Avenue in the Bronx, and I hired them to add a new fuse box and give it a basic rewiring, because when I turned on the lights, they were all dim. While there, I decided to start sanding the 65 down and prep it for some needed body work. And as you can see from the photo, the dust from the body was floating everywhere, to a point the guy that was working on the 6.5 asked me to stop sanding because he couldn't see what he was doing. I put in the new clear headlamps and the rear taillight bezels that I blacked out when I detailed and blacked out the headlight bezels. After about a straight week, the pre-sanding was pretty much done. With the primary work I did for the first month of owning the 1965 C-10 Chevy pickup, it was already looking better than it did when it first arrived to New York. But I had so much more to do. The parking permit finally came, so I was able to park it in the lot legally now. I mean, after the second day that I had the 65, I started parking in the lot without the permit anyway. But fam, we've come to an end of this episode, but not the end of the saga. So please check for part 2 where I start on the engine bay and the interior. You know, this your man Jack Wolf from JeckOne.com and oeroSTREET Automotive Custom Classics. Check out and pick up some of our merch at oeroSTREET.com. Stay safe and keep riding.